Technology check. So if you are listening in and can hear me, if you could just raise a hand using the hand raising tool. Perfect. We have sound. We have 50 people registered for the webinar and only about 14 have signed in so far. So I'm going to give us the 2 more minutes until the 10 o'clock hour and then we'll get started. So if you don't hear me for the next few minutes, I am still with you and we'll get started right at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. So glad you could join us. Thank you very much. And I'll be with you in just a minute. All right, good morning and welcome to the assessment update for the 2017-18 school year. My name is Carlin Laraway and I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability here at the State Department of Education. I am grateful that you're all here with us today. I intend for this to be the first in a series of monthly webinars that we will host to keep all of you informed as we process through the assessment cycle in the school year. And our goal is to provide you with up-to-date information in a timely manner in a format that is accessible to you, that if you are unable to join us for the live recorded or the live session rather, you can always go back and listen to the recording or follow up with the transcript. So I have posted the presentation I'm about to share with you today as a handout if you'd like to follow along or download that at a later time. You do not have my talking points or notes in that version, but I will provide those following this session. We have a few more people signing in, but I am going to get started. So with that, we'll start here. All right. As of about a month and a half ago, the Department of Assessment is now the Department of Assessment and Accountability. If you've been working in schools for the last several years, this was the case a few years ago, and then we had a pause in our accountability system, some changes in staffing, and we were just focused on assessment for a period of time. And now that our new accountability system is in place for the 2017-18 school year, we once again have married those two pieces of information together. Assessment and accountability go hand in hand, and we are once again the division or department rather of assessment and accountability. We've also expanded our department to address those accountability pieces and components with a new position and some restructuring internally with an accountability coordinator role. So as the Director of Assessment and Accountability, I oversee a staff of 8, and we've created a subset of our team that will oversee accountability, and I'll introduce you to those folks a little bit later as far as contacts and context for what their role might look like. what is accountability? Just for some perspective on how we determined the need to join those back together. Assessment participation, assessment performance, graduation rate, and assessment monitoring are all parts of our accountability system, in addition to the public report card and the state, district, and school report cards. Along with those pieces, we have to develop business rules to determine who is a participant that's reported for participation rates. Where is a student's performance reported? What school is their last enrolled school, or where did they take their assessment? Where's the student's graduation reported? Continuous enrollment, if many of you are familiar with that term, that's in IDAPA. In the accountability section, as students enrolled in the first 56 days of school, they count in your performance, and any other rules. So our team of accountability staff will be working on those business rules, making sure we're communicating that. In addition to these components of accountability, which many of you are familiar with, we'll also be working on the school identification calculations that are used to identify the lowest 5% of schools with the new accountability framework. We have been using a 5-star rating system that's been paused for several years. And prior to the 5-star rating system, we had what we all refer to as AYP, or Adequate Yearly Progress. So our new accountability system does not have a name, nothing flashy or catchy, but we are rolling that out over the course of the next year, and you will be hearing many presentations at various venues, including a webinar dedicated solely to school identification calculations in the next several months and over the course of the school year, as we will be identifying schools based on 2018 assessment data in the summer of next year, 2018. So it's an important time for us to be out having conversations about accountability and how it ties to assessment and instruction. And you'll be hearing more about that in the coming months. I want to connect everyone to our resources. The goal of this webinar is to make sure everyone knows where to go to find what you need. So the first place to go, obviously, is our assessment website. And I'm going to take a little detour here in just a second and get us to that. The website looks like this when you land on the landing page. We have a highlight section with the calendar of events. This is in a Google Calendar, so if any of you, or rather an Outlook calendar, if any of you would like to look at our calendar of events, any of our trainings or any of our events that we have scheduled, you'll find them on that. The Resource Center, I'll go into a little bit more detail about here in just a minute, but this is a very great location to find general resources, information, places where we store documents. And then the Understanding Student ISAT Scores is a direct link to a separate website that we developed that walks parents, educators, teachers, administrators, anyone who's really interested in understanding student ISAT scores. This was developed in partnership with Smarter Balance, and I think there's some really great information. So if you've not seen that, we encourage you to check that out. So below that, as I mentioned in the Resource Center, if you were to click on the Resource Center, this is a great place for weekly newsletters that are archived, as well as direct links to any of our portals. So all of our assessments are linked into some sort of application or portal, whether it be ISAT or our IRI information, participation appeals having to do with our accountability calculations, WIDA, the access test for our English learners. All of those portals are directly linked here, and you can see those in the Resource Center. So we feel like this is a great starting point, especially if you're a new assessment coordinator, just getting started and you don't know where to go to find what you need. This would be a great avenue. Under the main header, or those highlights, those 3 highlight boxes that we talked about, you will see resource files and FAQs, training, and links. So our resource files includes general information about our assessments and any of the portal applications that you saw on the previous slide here. So for instance, our assessment data export application, you would find information about that portal or that tool in that drop-down area. So just simply click on the plus box and on the right-hand side, and you will see any of the documentation, any of the resource pieces that we've posted there. We also have assessment-specific pages. So for every assessment that is overseen by our team here, you will see a specific department page. For instance, civics, college entrance exams, the national and international assessments, special education assessment, as you see on the screen. So if you have specific questions about the Idaho Reading Indicator or IRI, you simply click on that page and you would find a wealth of information. We've tried to streamline this and follow the very same format from one page to the next. So when you click on the civics page, for instance, you would see the following options: files, FAQs, training, and links. This is really designed to give you quick access to the information you're needing or looking for. So of course, files are important documents that we've posted, maybe a guideline, a test administration manual, or something like that. FAQs, obviously frequently asked questions. We regularly update these as we get more and more questions coming in around certain things, and we try to update that regularly on each of our pages. Training link on that side would be any upcoming training events with links to registration. And the links tab is outside resources or external vendor partner links. So if you were to click on our general assessment information page in the links tab, you would be taken to a link to the report card. If you were on the ISAT page for English language arts or math, you would be taken directly to the ISAT portal using the links page. So we've tried to make this as easy and user-friendly as possible for those in the field. We know your time is valuable and you are busy doing lots of great things for kids, and we want to provide you with access to information in a timely manner and easy to find and locate. If that's not the case and you find that you have suggestions for us to improve access for you, or you have ideas of restructure, we're all looking to improve that process, so please don't hesitate to let us know about that. Some other ways to connect with us: we have an assessment newsletter that we will email every other week. If you would like to be part of that and you're not currently on our distribution list, you can email Beverly Bracewell to be added to that. Her contact information will be later in the presentation. She's our administrative assistant and handles anything and everything having to do with our contact lists. We also pull lists regularly from the IDCI or the contact distribution list that you submit, or your schools and districts submit through the IC application. So if you are not the listed or notified or registered assessment coordinator for your school district, please update the IDCI and get added to that. We'll pull that list regularly and update against our registered list if you'd like to be added. If you are interested in having teachers or others receive the assessment newsletter, you can simply just forward that to them, or they can also email Beverly and get added. We have an assessment networking group in Edmodo at edmodo.com. So if you are interested in joining that, this is a new group. We roll it over every year. So the 2017-18 State Assessment Networking Group for Idaho. The group join code rather updates every couple of weeks. So this one updated as of the 11th, which was 2 days ago. So that join code that you see there is beginning with the number 5, the letter DIGCG. That's the join code for edmodo.com this year. If you have not joined the 2017-18 networking group, please do so. It's a great place to post questions, share ideas with other assessment coordinators or directors that have great resources. If you're looking for an assessment schedule for 700 students with 2 computer labs, post it, ask, and I'm sure someone else has done that and can help you out. We also try to answer questions and post that as a regular update. If you're struggling with something, please let us know. Of course, that's not the only way to reach us. You can always call or email us, and we're happy to help. And I will share staff contacts at the end of the presentation. Just a quick overview of the 2017-18 assessment schedule. This document can be found in a similar format, but I just cut and pasted a few pieces that I thought were highlights. But a more comprehensive view of this is available on our website in our resource file. So in the general information, the assessment schedule for 2017-18 is usually updated in late spring and posted. So please, if you're looking for some information, if you'd like to print this out and share this with all of your administrators, you can certainly pull it from the presentation today or offline with the more comprehensive view of that. Details a little bit more about each assessment. So if you're a new assessment coordinator and you've never heard of NAEP, National Assessment for Educational Progress, it would detail a little bit more information in that document. The primary testing windows for the spring summative assessments begin on March 19th. We try to accommodate the wide variety of spring break schedules that we see across the state. So this is about an 8-week window or just over an 8-week window. And hopefully this will coincide with schedules and can work for all of you. We extended the window last year to accommodate for the heavy school closures, unprecedented winter that we had last year. And certainly we would consider an extension if it was necessary this year, but the dates are usually set for that 8-week period. So if you have any questions about the timelines or our assessment windows, we encourage you to reach out, let us know. A couple of points: the SAT School Day Administration scheduled for the 10th of April, and the SAT Makeup Day scheduled for the 24th of April. Those are state paid opportunities, so make sure those are on your calendars for all of your juniors this year. And of course, biology and chemistry assessments opens a little bit earlier to accommodate a trimester schedule in some of our schools, so that opens on February 26th. But the ISAT Science for grades 5 and 7 will coincide with our English Language Arts and Math assessments. And let's see if there's any other key dates. Right now, we're in the sort of middle to end of the Idaho Reading Indicator Fall Administration window, which opened on August 21st. That will close the end of this month, September 29th. And our PSAT test is up and coming here in just about a month, October 11th, 2017. Again, an opportunity paid for by the state for any of your sophomores. So if you have questions about that, there's some information on PSAT a little bit later. Of course, if you're using our comprehensive assessment system, the interim assessment window is open and will remain open until March 14th. So you can administer any of the interim assessments as optionals, decisions at a local level, now through the rest of the spring administration up until we switch over for our summative assessment. I'm going to talk about each of our assessment programs in a little bit and detail for each one, and then I'll stop and right now before I get started on civics and answer any questions. If you have them, please type them in the questions box, and I will go through those. I have one right now from Anita Christensen that asks, when will the graduation rate appeal window be open this year? We'll talk about it at the end, but I can tell you November 1st, I believe, is the preliminary window to review graduation rate information. We will be sending that out, confirmation of that opening date here in the next couple of weeks as we solidify the appeal application. But my preliminary notes tell me November 1st. There are no other questions about what I've covered so far. We'll talk a little bit about each assessment program, as I mentioned. Starting with civics, this is a graduation requirement, assessing students that are anytime after 7th grade using the questions from the U.S. Citizenship and Naturalization Test. You decide how the assessment is given at a local level. Districts can do that in any way they would prefer. It can be administered on paper and pencil as a multiple choice test. You can convert that to an online test. You also determine when you give that assessment. I have no particular assessment window for that. And districts will determine the passing threshold. So most districts we've polled have a passing percentage requirement of 60% of the 100 test questions. Some have 70, some have 75. I think the lowest I've heard is 60%. Again, students can take this assessment anytime after 7th grade and retake the test until they reach that passing threshold. This could be administered in creative ways. You could use it as an end of course assessment in U.S. history and government, so 11th grade and 12th grade, and split that, the content up. Most of the test questions of the 100 in that U.S. Citizenship and Naturalization Test, about half are covered by U.S. history and the other half about government. So you could certainly switch that up. You could do a variety of creative things, and I've seen lots of ideas. So the only thing that's required is that the student transcript must reflect that the student passed the assessment. I don't collect any data at the state. We don't report on this at at a state or district or school level. So if a student moves into your district and has completed that assessment, regardless of what the passing threshold was in the transferring district where it might differ from yours, you accept that student's past assessment score, and they're no longer required to take it. Okay, college entrance exam. Students must take the SAT or ACT college entrance exams before the end of the student's 11th grade year. This is a graduation requirement. The SAT is available as a state paid opportunity for all of our juniors in our schools. And we have gone to some extensive lengths to rewrite or edit the IDAPA rule that covers this particular assessment requirement. And so there are new rules that provide clarification for students with disabilities, homeschool students, and then also provides a very limited hardship case for student exemptions. So a couple of questions that I have right now in the questions box. If we have new seniors who missed SAT in another state, will the state pay for the test this fall? We are working that out, Kaylin. I need to follow up with our college entrance exam coordinator on the process for seniors who missed the junior assessment in another state. Yes, the plan is for the state to pay for those limited, but unfortunately our only availability for that in terms of state payment is on the state assessment date, and that's the makeup administration date. So if the students are wanting to take that test in the fall, they would be required to pay for that themselves. Our only availability for payment for invoicing the state for makeup exams is during the state administration makeup test date for the college entrance exam. If a student has taken the civics test in another state, will that be accepted? Absolutely. Just like assessment participation, if a student has taken the civics test, I would welcome and accept that, yes. I want to go back to the college entrance exam exemption. We've had lots of scenarios posed to us over the past several weeks as this has been starting to gain some traction and people are noticing this. I want to be really very specific and very clear. This is not a decision that a student isn't going on to college, therefore they don't want to take the SAT or ACT, that they're going to a community college that doesn't require it, therefore they shouldn't have to take it. The point of this is for students who, due to catastrophic illness or family situation, missed the opportunity to take the SAT during their junior year, or were recently transferred in and due to hardship cases are unable to take the SAT during a Saturday administration, and there's some documentation to support that. This isn't an exemption that students don't want to take it, therefore they don't have to. That's not our exemption criteria. So there's a form that will be posted on our website that will detail that and will require some documentation in extreme situations. So please don't suggest to any juniors this year that because of this new exemption, they don't have to take the test. The encouraging opportunity is many of our students, we hear from, hey, I don't want to take it because I'm not going to college, and then they change their mind later and then they need the test and haven't taken it. So we encourage our students to take this college entrance exam. If the state is paying for the SAT, it's a great opportunity. Give them a chance to interact with a college entrance exam on the state's dime and not on theirs during the school day and not on a Saturday, and have that experience. And if at some point after they've graduated and been working for a year, decide they want to go back to college, they have that score. So the exemptions will be very, very limited to a small number of students. And Andrea Marie has suggested or asked the question, Compass is no longer allowed. Compass has been discontinued. So that test is no longer available. So students that took the Compass test prior to the last administration would be eligible to use that assessment to meet this requirement. The last administration was in, I believe, October 1st of 2016. So if a student took the Compass test prior to that last administration and is graduating this year or in 2019, they would be able to use that assessment score to meet the college entrance exam requirement. But Compass is no longer available. We have a couple of other options for students with disabilities, and that is the AccuPlacer placement test. That does not fulfill a college entrance exam, and many of our higher ed universities are not accepting the placement tests as college entrance, but some of our two-year institutions will look at those scores and use that as placement where they're not requiring an SAT or ACT score. So it is an experience for students, and it does fulfill the requirement if an IEP team determines that is in the best interest of the student and parents are made aware of the limited availability of the test results serving as an entrance or placement for school. Moving on to our English language proficiency assessment. This is the WIDA Access 2.0 assessment. This is actually a system of assessments that involves a screener that's initially given to students to determine their eligibility for services. So this would be applied to any new students transferring into your schools that have are coming to a school for the first time or have never been screened before. The new WIDA screener is rolled out, and there's a lot of information. We've just completed some training over the state last week rather, and I know that I'm hearing from a lot of folks in the field that this is a pretty involved assessment and takes quite a bit of time. So hang in there. We know it's new. We are working to improve the assessment as quickly as possible and facilitate outreach to you to support your needs. We are working with the consortium, the WIDA consortium states, and we're one member of 38 with 38 states involved in this. So the assessment is really widespread across the country and being utilized by nearly all of our English learners across the country, and we really feel like the data we're getting back is valuable and will help inform interventions and strategies and improve instruction for our English learners. But we continue to see the struggles and frustrations, so hang in there with us. Let us know how we can support you, what else you might need. We're working with our vendor to provide support in the form of some quick guides and 2-minute videos, things that you can access and make that easier to access. So we're continuing to improve that. Once the screener's administered, if a student is found eligible and is receiving services, then the Access 2.0 assessment will be administered annually until the student meets that exit criteria. That is the new assessment that replaces the old IELA, as we all referred to before, the Idaho English Language Acquisition. This assessment is administered online with some components on paper. So it's a brand new assessment. The 2.0, Access 2.0 is the online version. So we're excited. This will be our 3rd year of administration. We're seeing improvements in the length of time it takes students to assess. And now that all of you are more familiar with the system, it will not change this year. It will still be using the DRC Insight system. So that will continue. I'm going to pause because I have a couple of questions in the questions box that I have not answered yet. Could the student take ALEX or writing placement test at the local college in place of the SAT? Kaylin, at this time, that's not an accepted replacement for the test because that's specific to, I just believe, math. So we're working out some details and providing a list of opportunities or options, but we're not exempting kids from taking tests because they took a test in lieu of. We're really looking for hardship situations. So at this point in time, that would not meet the requirement for the college entrance exam. Okay, Idaho Reading Indicator, Case 3, as always, administered one-on-one with a proctor, paper pencil test. Students identify their letter sounds, and then read for 1 minute. This fluency result is submitted in our IC reports in October. So please, please, please make sure you're working with your IC folks in your district to get that score report, score information for your students in your IC files in October. This replaces the separate file uploads where you had to do them manually in the application, and then you had a cleanup period where we matched it against your IC report. This way, all of that is done at one time. If you had the student enrolled during the test window, their test date overlaps with their enrollment record, and their grade level of their assessment matches up to the grade level of their enrolled record in the student demographic file. your file will load cleanly and you will not have any errors to clean up. We are piloting the new IRI by iStation, which is an online assessment. And so we have about 57 schools participating in that. And we're eager to see how that works and what data we get back and how people in the field that are piloting that feel. So we'll have a presentation about that in a couple of other webinars, probably in November after we get some data back. We'll share some information about that. I have a question about the IRI. Can you clarify the 10-word read correctly rule for IRI when we have the proctors not go on to the next passage if less than 10 words are read correctly? Okay, so as long as they read one word correctly out of 10, then you might move on to the new passage. No, you are correct. The 10-word rule is if a student reads less than 10 words in 1 minute on one passage, you can end the test and report that score. The 3-second rule is the same. If a student struggles with a word after 3 seconds, you tell them the word and move on. So those scoring rules are listed in the proctor manual, and if you need a couple of copies of that or have updated questions about that, please let us know and we will send those out. Okay, moving on to our ISAT English Language Arts and Math assessments. This is administered in grades 3 through 8 and 10. Participation is a requirement, but is no longer a proficiency requirement for graduation. So I want to stress participation in our statewide assessment program, including all of the assessments that I'm covering today, is required in IDAPA Rule 080203111 assessment in public schools. Proficiency on the ISAT test is no longer a graduation requirement. So students do not have to be proficient to graduate, but they should participate. Please remember, accountability includes participation rate percentages, and the federal government in the Every Student Succeeds Act kept the requirement for students to participate in statewide assessment programs and a target or rate of 95% participation. So 95 out of 100 students must participate in our statewide assessments. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to get into more details, but I think that's pretty straightforward. And the graduation requirement was no longer required in 2017, so that's not new, but it's just a great reminder. Our science and our high school science end of course assessment. So science is still administered in grade 5 and 7, and our high school students take an end of course assessment in high school grades 10 through 12 in biology or chemistry. Now, I have a question from a few minutes ago around science that I hadn't covered yet. The science assessment that we're currently administering in 2018 is still aligned to former standards. Yes, that is correct. The new standards have not been formally adopted by the legislature. They've been temporarily adopted. So when they are permanently adopted as anticipated in the 2018 legislative session, we will then turn our attention to a new assessment aligned to the new standards. We are already starting conversations with other folks that have started this work in other states as they've revamped their science standards, and we're excited about the opportunities to see where that goes. I think big changes are coming with the new assessment, and I think that can be a really exciting time. So stay tuned for that, but for the 2018 assessments for science and end of course, they will be aligned to the old standards. The high school science end of course assessment participation, I want to spend a little bit of time on just so everyone is clear. Students should be taking one assessment, either biology or chemistry, sometime in their sophomore, junior, or senior year. This is a participation requirement, not a graduation requirement. And we are calculating the participation rate based on seniors enrolled the last Friday, or the first Friday in May, and whether or not they've taken a science end of course assessment sometime in the previous 3 years. So when we calculate our science participation in 2018, we will be looking at students taking a science end of course in 2018, 17, or 16. We will also pull in any 2015 end of course scores for any students that may be graduating late with their cohort. So we will capture those. So please keep that in mind as you get new students in throughout the year. If they have a science assessment from another state, that certainly meets the definition. Unfortunately, the state does not have those records, so they'll be showing up in your assessment participation rate appeals for science. Just simply have a copy of their score report available, and we'll take those out of your calculation so they won't count against you. But any student that's enrolled in your district on the first Friday of May will be looking for a science assessment, and that's specifically for seniors. We're capturing that on a cohort base. All right, let's see. I have a question about students who transfer in as seniors taking the EOC in science. Yes, we're looking for all students. If they have a science score from another state in a previous year in 10th or 11th grade, we're happy to include those. You'll just have to provide a score report during the participation rate appeals window. But if they haven't taken a science assessment in other states, we would expect them to take something in their senior year aligned to content that they've already completed, most closely aligned. And oftentimes we see that as the biology assessment, but I certainly won't limit that. So if a student wants to take the chemistry test, they can. We have students who are ninth graders and are taking biology. This is coming from Christian Ledbetter. It would be very nice to have them take the science EOC then. Yes, I see that across the board. Dave Harrison has also commented on that. I need to be very clear. This is not a state limitation. This is a federal limitation. Science assessments are required in grade spans 3 through 5, 6 through 9, and 10 through 12. So a student taking the end of course high school assessment in ninth grade would not be counted in high school participation rates. So I apologize. We have requested this consideration with the U.S. Department of Education, and we have been denied twice. So we continue to push this issue, but for the purpose of federal reporting and the expectations in the Every Student Succeeds Act for science participation, science is tested once in the grade spans 3 through 5, 6 through 9, and 10 through 12. All right, let's start here for a second. This is our assessment team. You're hearing my voice today. I am Carlin Laraway, the Director of Assessment. But I want to introduce you to our team because in the future webinars every month that we plan to host, you're going to hear from a variety of folks in the staff. And I like to have faces with names as well as faces with voices. So I'll introduce you today briefly to our contacts, and you can capture contact information for any of the folks that you might have questions for directly. Ayeka is our accountability coordinator. She's been our statistician and research analyst for several years, and so we're just reshifting and restructuring our team to account for the accountability work that we'll be doing. She's been instrumental in leading the work on graduation rate, and she helped in assessment participation appeals this year, and she'll be helping with assessment performance. She's also responsible for federal reporting for EdFacts and all of the data that goes to the U.S. Department of Education for schools and districts and is reported in the National Center for Educational Statistics. So she's very familiar with all of the data and helps with business rules as well. Beverly Bracewell is our administrative assistant. If you have questions about the newsletter, registration for events, or general questions, you can certainly call Beverly. If you need to reach me and I'm not answering my phone, she can track me down. Danielle Taylor is our assessment specialist. She previously worked over with Matt McCarter's team in working with advanced ops and the prevention conference, so many of you might have worked with Danielle in other capacities. She's been with us almost a year. She is overseeing civics and assessment monitoring, and she can answer general assessment questions about any of our programs as she's getting up to speed. She's been primarily helping with our Idaho Reading Indicator and the Access 2.0 and College Board assessments, but she'll be branching out into covering some of our other assessments as she gets up to speed on those as well. So please feel free to contact Beverly or Danielle with general questions. Heidi Arate is our assessment coordinator overseeing the IRI and our science and of course assessments. Heidi's a former administrator, a science teacher, a charter school principal, and is a great addition to the team, and she's been with us just now a year. So if you have questions about the IRI or science or end of course assessments or the literacy intervention program, you can reach out to Heidi. Dr. Karen Striegel, I have here, is listed in special education, and she's part of our assessment team on loan on a regular basis from Dr. Silva's special education department. She's overseeing the alternate assessment and helping guide work in supports and accommodations for students on our assessments. So Karen Striegel has been a great resource. She's administered the alternate assessment. Many of you might know her from ISU, where she's been an instructor there for the last several years, and she joined the department in the end of June this year. So we're excited to have Karen join our team and guide our work for serving students with disabilities. Kevin Whitman is our new accountability coordinator that expands our team with Kevin and Ayeka and myself to help oversee accountability work. He will be working on all of our calculations for school identification and the final reporting of that data, as well as some internal reporting. So we're excited to have Kevin. You'll notice his phone number is incomplete. He's moving desks, and extensions have not been granted yet, so I will have that updated just as quick as we can. But he is part of the team, so we can reach him directly with his email, and I'll get his phone number updated for our next webinar. Melanie Jones is our assessment coordinator that oversees the college entrance exam and the English Language Proficiency Access 2.0 assessment. So if you have questions about the screener or about SAT, PSAT, even the ACT or AccuPlacer college entrance exam rule, Melanie is your go-to person for that. Nancy Thomas Price, our assessment coordinator overseeing the comprehensive assessment system with the digital library, interim assessments, the summative assessments for English language arts, literacy, and math. Nancy's been with the department for just over 9 years. Many of you have worked with her over the past several years as we've rolled out the new ISAT test by Smarter Balance. Nancy's a wealth of information covering all of these topics, and I encourage you to reach out to her if you have questions, want more information. She is fantastic. And our newest member, Paul Kleinert, also transfers us internally within the department from the special education team. And he will be overseeing the national and international assessments. So NAEP, TIMS, which is the Trends in International Math and Science, PEARLS, and PISA. So we're excited to have Paul on board. He joins us starting September 25th officially. So he is internally in the department right now, but joins our team starting September 25th. I want to share a couple of upcoming events with you, and then we will open it up for some questions if there's anything I haven't addressed. We have a college entrance exam. We're going to do a webinar that's still being finalized right now with a date on AccuPlacer. So if you're interested in learning more about that and how that assessment can be used for students with disabilities, we encourage you to look at that. We're coordinating and collaborating with the special ed team right now on that. There's a webinar on the 27th of September for parents for information about the PSAT and National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. And that will be available on our college entrance exam webpage on the assessment site as soon as that is done. And we encourage you to share that link to the recorded webinar with your parents. Maybe make it available, share it out, send it out to help them understand this opportunity for students in 10th grade taking that PSAT. Nancy Thomas Price is hosting an informational webinar on changes in the test information distribution engine. We have enough acronyms in assessment and technology that you need a glossary of terms that might be the size of Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So it's possible we'll be updating that. But TIDE, Test Information Distribution Engine, where all of your students are located, where all of the information about who your students that will be taking the ISAT tests are stored. That been a few updates to that system, and that webinar will be Thursday, September 28th. From 1:30 to 2:30, and that is Mountain Time. The links in the webinar posting here don't work, so if you just simply copy and paste it into your browser, you will be able to register using the link that's there. And then a host of Access 2.0 webinars being hosted by WIDA. And I've provided a direct link to the WIDA assessment calendar of events, as well as a highlight of the upcoming webinars. So it looks like Next week, they have one on using 2017 access scores for ELs with their results in the new year. And then they have a What's New This Year webinar on the 21st, and then some pre-testing. So if you have any questions about training, software updates and technology readiness checklists and ordering materials, you'll see those starting the following week, September 26th, the 28th, and then the first week of October, that pre-testing ordering materials webinar. And last but not least, our plan, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, is to host an assessment director's webinar each month on the second Wednesday. And we will post the registration link on our website and in our newsletter next week. We plan to cover topics that will be just in time, and that would look like a little information about the PSAT webinar or PSAT test in October, information about the close of the IRI window, anything relevant and important at the time that we do that. And we will also cover any questions that we receive throughout the month or that are posted on Edmodo, and hopefully address questions in a broader audience and facilitate question and answers at the end of each session. If you have suggestions or ideas on topics that you'd like us to be more specific about that might require 10 or 15 minutes of explanation that we could get into a little bit more detail for you, we're happy to take your suggestions. So please email those ideas to any one of our team, and we would be happy to help facilitate conversations in these formats with that. We are also available to come to you if you would like to have a meeting, host a get together with your staff to talk about assessment. If there's something we can do to provide training for you directly, please let us know, and we will work within our schedules to do that. I also hope to coordinate with some of you for some regional assessment director meetings face-to-face. That might be half day, and facilitate some ongoing dialogue and conversations, and hear from you what your needs are and how we can better serve you in the schools, especially as we roll out the new accountability system. I think this is a critical time and transition period, so we want to be as responsive as we can. So I'll be reaching out. If any of you are interested in hosting a regional directors meeting, I would be happy to help facilitate something. Please let me know, and we will reach out and start those conversations and get out on the road here in October and November and see if we can't connect face-to-face as well. That's all I have to share. You've heard me talk for the last 45 minutes. Are there any questions I haven't answered that you would like to answer? And I'm happy to have you raise your hand if you'd like, and I can unmute you so we can all hear your lovely voice. Or if you have other questions, you can type them in the chat box, and I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it. I believe I've answered all of the questions that are in the questions box so far. And I will type the answers to the questions and also send that out afterwards so that you've all seen those. But again, graduation appeals window opens November 1st. Seniors who missed the SAT in another state, the state will pay for the test so long as it's on the makeup day in the spring, which is April. So it might be critically important to have students take that before. Unfortunately, we're on a timeline. So we'll work with you to facilitate that. Science assessment this year is still aligned to the former standards. The 2018 assessment will still be aligned to former standards. Civics test from another state will be accepted, yes. The Compass test is no longer available to students. So if students have taken Compass prior to this year, and they want to use that as graduation, that is fine so long as it was prior to the last administration. And the 10-word rule for IRI reading. If they don't read the 10 words correctly on the first, within the minute on the first reading passage, they do not need to go on. Seniors who transfer from another state should take an EOC if they haven't already taken a science assessment in the previous state. I hear you on the ninth graders. I'm very sorry. We'll keep working with the Department of Education and see if they can help us out with that. Thank you, Andrew, for the compliment on the team. We're working hard and hopefully can help address your needs. If you have any questions, please let us know and we're happy to help. The new rule exemption for PSAT, SAT. PSAT is optional, so there's no exemption for PSAT, but SAT exemption is for limited hardship cases and will be available, the form will be available and we'll explain in more detail. This is not to say for students that are not planning to go to college, therefore they don't want to take the test or it's not viable for them. This is the exemption for hardship cases, so very limited exemptions. Anita Christensen has asked, does the SDE have a handy due date for PSAT and SAT document that could be shared? Yes, I know that PSAT calendar of upcoming deadlines is out and available. I will follow up and make sure you guys get that and that that's posted and readily available if it isn't already, which I'm sure it is. Very little information about College Board. Oh yes, your school coordinators received that. We're working with College Board. I want to talk about that for just a second to streamline communication processes, and we're doing more and more outreach with our assessment coordinators on College Board information, just so you're in the loop and aware. So we appreciate you wanting to support your schools. Certainly don't want to burden you. We know this is usually a task assigned to school counselors, which can be good and bad, and we understand that. So we'll continue to improve that communication and include assessment coordinators at the district level as often as possible in communication. And don't forget to look for those things in our newsletter that you receive directly. We include all of our assessment programs and deadlines, so please look out for those as well. And we'll continue to improve that. I don't see any hands raised, and I don't see any other questions after Anita's. So if there are no other questions, I will let you all out 10 minutes early to get back to your very busy schedules and very busy days. And I appreciate you being with us, and look for the link for our October webinar, which will be Wednesday, October 11th at the same time. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.